My 18th birthday was supposed to be the moment I finally mattered, but the second he walked through that door, everything changed. I had spent weeks preparing for this night, not for a party, but for proof that I was finally seen. Plans were canceled, friends stopped coming, and my family chose silence over me. Standing there with cupcakes I baked myself, I realized something painful. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. And that night, I made a choice that changed everything.
I had always imagined my 18th birthday as a line in the sand, the moment where childhood officially loosened its grip and something new began. Not freedom exactly, but recognition. A single day where I mattered without conditions. I had spent weeks preparing for that evening. Nothing extravagant, just a backyard gathering, soft lights strung between fence posts, a borrowed speaker, cupcakes I had learned to frost myself after watching too many late-night videos. It wasn't about the party, it was about being seen. That morning started with hope. The house smelled like sugar and vanilla. Decorations waited patiently on the dining table. My phone buzzed with excited messages from friends asking what time to come. For once, the attention wasn't redirected somewhere else. Hey friends, if stories like this resonate with you, hit that subscribe button to show your support. Thank you in anticipation. Then, my older brother came home. He arrived loud and restless, carrying the weight of his disappointment, like it was everyone else's responsibility to absorb. His weekend plans had collapsed, a road trip with friends, a concert he had hyped for months. The car had broken down hours outside the city. Everything unraveled. I noticed how the air in the house changed the second he walked in. The way my mother's shoulders stiffened, the way my father went quiet, the way everyone instinctively adjusted. He barely acknowledged me. His frustration filled every room he entered. He paced, he complained, he radiated the kind of tension that demanded accommodation. By early afternoon, my mother stopped helping with decorations. By evening, the shift was complete, without discussion, without warning, without even looking at me. The messages went out, apologies were typed, plans were canceled. A story was crafted and sent on my behalf. I stood in the kitchen holding a tray of cupcakes while my mother explained that it was better this way. The house was already fragile. My brother was overwhelmed. This was not the right time for noise or celebration. I listened as if from underwater. The backyard remained lit. The decorations stayed where I had left them. Time passed, but nothing arrived. No doorbell, no laughter, no recognition. My father avoided my eyes. My mother insisted this was temporary, that it could be made up later. That word later followed me like a shadow. Later birthdays, later apologies, later attention. Always later. Something settled inside me that night. Not anger, not sadness, clarity. I went to my room and began packing, quietly, methodically, as if I had been practicing for this moment my entire life without realizing it. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need confrontation. I just needed distance. Downstairs, voices rose, tension built, explanations were exchanged without my presence. My brother remained the axis around which everything turned. Then, the doorbell rang. The interruption felt sharp, almost unreal. My aunt had arrived unexpectedly, suitcase in hand, expecting to celebrate a milestone. One look at the half-decorated yard and untouched food told her everything she needed to know. I didn't plan to speak, but for the first time, someone asked me what actually happened. And I told the truth. Not dramatically, not angrily, just clearly. About the party, the cancellation, the lie, the pattern, the way I always adapted, the way my brother was always protected, the way my strength had been used as an excuse to neglect me. The room went silent. What followed cracked something that had been carefully hidden for years. Financial truths surfaced, dependencies were exposed. Support that had been quietly propping everything up was suddenly withdrawn. I learned that night that the stability of my family had been far more fragile than I ever realized, and that my silence had been part of what kept the illusion intact. My aunt made an offer. Not dramatic, not forceful, just a door. A place to go, the chance to start without being the afterthought. I didn't hesitate. The moment wasn't loud, it didn't feel rebellious, it felt final. As I stepped out of the house, bags in hand, I understood something that would take years to fully unpack. The family I was leaving behind would tell their version of this story. They would frame it as overreaction, as immaturity, as betrayal. But for the first time, I wasn't responsible for carrying their comfort. The car pulled away, the lights faded, and somewhere between the city limits and the quiet stretch of highway ahead, I realized that my birthday hadn't been ruined. It had revealed the truth. Have you ever felt invisible by the people who are supposed to love you the most? Where every effort, every smile, every celebration goes unnoticed? Until you finally realize you don't need their approval to exist. This is the story of reclaiming yourself when the people you love the most fail to see you. Leaving did not bring instant peace. It brought silence first, the kind that felt unfamiliar and almost suspicious. I woke up in my aunt's guest room, expecting the day to start with tension, with footsteps that signaled someone else's mood would set the tone. Instead, there was only morning light and the distant sound of traffic. No pressure to adjust myself to fit someone else's emotional weather. Her house sat in a quiet Portland neighborhood, tucked between tall trees and narrow sidewalks. It felt lived in without feeling controlled. Nothing demanded perfection, nothing punished presence. I kept waiting for the guilt to arrive. I had been trained for it my entire life. For years, guilt had been the invisible leash that pulled me back whenever I drifted too far from what my family expected. Being strong had never meant being free. It had meant being reliable. It had meant absorbing disappointment so others didn't have to. The first few days passed gently. I unpacked my bag slowly, unsure how permanent this was supposed to feel. My aunt didn't rush me. There were no rules disguised as kindness, just space. Then the messages began. They started soft. My mother sent long explanations filled with exhaustion and emotional framing. Stress had been overwhelming. My brother had been fragile. The family had been under pressure. Everything had been a misunderstanding layered on top of bad timing. The words were carefully chosen, apologies that apologized for feelings instead of actions, love declarations followed by reminders of sacrifice. I responded politely at first, short acknowledgments, neutral reassurance. I didn't challenge the narrative. Not yet. My father's messages were fewer and heavier with silence, statements instead of emotions. He hoped I was settling in, he missed me, he avoided the real issue like it was something fragile that would shatter if acknowledged. Days turned into weeks. I started building a routine that didn't revolve around reacting. I found a part-time job at a small bookstore where the shelves leaned and the staff argued passionately about novels. The work was quiet and grounding. Nobody knew my history. Nobody expected me to manage anyone else's feelings. For the first time, I was not someone's emotional support system. The guilt texts escalated when routine replaced urgency. My mother began referencing money, how things were tight, how my aunt's sudden withdrawal of support had left them scrambling, how the coffee shop my father ran was barely breaking even, how my brother was carrying so much pressure. The implication grew louder without ever being stated directly. I was supposed to fix this. I was reasonable. I was strong. I was the one who could smooth things over. Every message subtly pointed back to the same conclusion. If I returned, things would stabilize. If I spoke to my aunt, the money might resume. If I softened, the tension would disappear. The problem had never been the system. The problem was my refusal to play my role. One night, after reading yet another carefully worded plea disguised as concern, I noticed something I had never allowed myself to see clearly before. They did not miss my presence. They missed my function. I was the buffer, the absorber, the quiet solution to problems they refused to address. My aunt noticed the shift in my posture before I fully understood it myself. The way I paused before opening messages, the way I sighed instead of responding immediately. She asked me to imagine something. What would my family look like if I had never existed? The question landed hard. Would my brother still be fragile? Would the shop still struggle? Would the pressure still exist? The answer was yes. My absence had not created their problems, it had only exposed them. That realization didn't erase the guilt, but it weakened its grip. A few days later, I sent a message I had been rehearsing in my head for weeks. I told my parents I needed boundaries if there was ever going to be a relationship again. I explained that I could not return to a home where my brother's needs permanently outweighed my own. I stated clearly and calmly that I would only consider coming back if the dynamic changed. Specifically, I asked that my brother move out, not as punishment, not as revenge, as recognition. He was an adult. He had options. I deserved space without being eclipsed. The message felt terrifying to send. I knew, even as I typed it, that this was really not a negotiation. It was a test. The response did not come quickly. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. No immediate pushback, no emotional essays, just absence. While I waited, life continued to grow around me. I made friends who knew me without expectations attached. I studied in public libraries where no one measured my worth by how useful I was. I laughed without checking whether someone else's mood would be affected. Then, unexpectedly, my brother appeared. He showed up in Portland without warning, fueled by entitlement and urgency. He had been given my address and schedule. He had been sent as a final attempt to regain control. The confrontation was brief and unsettling. Not because of what was said, but because of what he did. For the first time, the emotional pressure crossed into physical space. The moment his hand closed around my wrist, something irrevocable shifted inside me. This was not misunderstanding. This was ownership. I did not follow him. I did not soften. I did not retreat. I named the behavior for what it was. I warned him. The aftermath was quiet but tense. My aunt insisted on documentation. I hesitated, torn between protecting myself and avoiding escalation. We agreed on one thing. If he appeared again, it would not be handled privately. Days passed. Then my mother's message arrived. Her words were colder this time. The tone had shifted from guilt to judgment. I was accused of manipulation, of cruelty, of choosing my own comfort over family loyalty. The ultimatum was clear. They would not ask my brother to leave. They would not restructure the family. They would not prioritize my pain. They framed it as love, as duty, as sacrifice. And at the end, they made their choice explicit. I read the message twice, then once more. The weight lifted instead of crushing me. This was the clarity I had been chasing. I did not argue. I did not defend myself. I did not explain. I sent a short response and blocked every connection that tied me back to that house. The silence that followed was different from before. Clean. There was grief in it, relief, something like freedom. I understood then that leaving wasn't the end of the story. It was the moment the story stopped being rewritten without my consent. And while I couldn't yet see how everything would turn out, I finally knew one thing with certainty. Whatever happened to them next would no longer require me to disappear. Sometimes leaving isn't about running away. It's about stepping into the life you were meant to live. It's about discovering that your worth was never tied to someone else's comfort. And when you finally choose yourself, you realize that freedom isn't loud. It's quiet, it's steady, and it's yours. This is more than a story about one birthday. It's a story about finally being seen.